Hello everyone, the last session of today, the most anticipated for me as it's one of my favorite spaces. Blockchain, very hyped up in the last few years, but today we'll be talking about more of the technology, not the price obviously, but hopefully in the future it will change everything, that's what we say, but we will see. I mean, the panelists will tell us more about it. Our panelists will be doing a different style of speeches. I mean, if you have been here the whole process, it's called 360, and if you're a new one, just watching here for a blockchain panel, it's going to be interesting because two people at the same time on stage, and each one has 10 minutes on stage, and every 10 minutes a new one comes up and one of the speakers come out of the stage. So the 360, once more. And the first two panelists, the speakers, Mr. Güner Gürsoy and Mr. Emin Torunoğlu. Please, can I have you on stage? Welcome. And the floor is yours.
Emin Bey, merhaba.
Merhabalar.
Hi, everybody. This is a new setup, so we are trying to figure out. And the most difficult thing is to start something as a starter. So, but I just learned that I have to stay here for 10 minutes, and afterwards somebody will come and kick me out of here, and afterwards at the last minute, someone call me again. So that's an interesting thing. But the most important thing is, first of all, I would like to thank to the organization committee, because this is a big success, and I'm very glad and that we have something like that in Turkey, in Istanbul, because that's the future. So we have to actually expand the awareness of this area, and we have to have more people working on this issue, because it will be in our agenda for so many years. So when you ask about what the blockchain is about, it's just a database management system. It's a simple form. That's what it is. Because most of the time when we define the things, we put different names and concepts, and it gets complicated for so many people. Maybe we make it complicated as a technology side and say that, okay, I mean, so this is complicated, you cannot understand, you have to pay for me in order to explain it to you. But this is not the way it is. It is basically what it is. But beyond that, there are many advantages that we can use, and actually it will change the way we do business. So the thing is, whether we should do it from bottom to up or top to bottom, that's another thing. So we will discuss about through all these platforms, and afterwards we will come up with something different. In my perspective, that actually it should start with the business model design, because that's the most important thing. Why do you do it? Actually, in the C-suite, we discussed this issue upward in a few minutes. What does it add, what is the value we are adding with this, and how are we going to be able to change the way we do the business, and what is the end value to the customer? So that would be the thing. But gladly, I would like to introduce Emin Bey here, Mr. Emin, and he is from the government. So actually, blockchain is against the government, but so anyway.
Yeah, we will discuss about that. Okay.
Against the regulation, but they are here anyway. So, and they are very enthusiastic about implementing blockchain in governmental issues, and especially international trade. And I would like to ask him, please introduce yourself, and afterwards describe how government end up with blockchain.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm Muhammed Emin Torunoğlu. I'm the head of Behavioral Public Policy and Disruptive Technologies Department at the Ministry of Trade. First things first, we are not against blockchain.
Okay, okay.
And actually, it's my job to integrate blockchain technology into the foreign trade procedures. So I have been working for the ministry for the last 8 years, and my specialties include the public consultancy side, international trade, and government subsidies. And for the last 2 years, we are working on disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence and blockchain and we are trying to integrate those technologies into our ecosystems. But you have a valid point. So the main promise of the blockchain is the elimination of the third party. And when you look at it, the government is the ultimate third party. So when you want to get married, you go to the municipality and we approve your marriage. Or when you want to buy a house, let's say, you have to go to the relevant authority to verify that transaction. So that's what government do. And that's what the blockchain promises to eliminate. So as the government officials, we need to be really aware of the potential opportunities and risks that are originated with blockchain technology. Let me briefly talk about the risks.
Please.
So I will talk about the opportunities in a minute, but the risks, and the main risk is the data privacy. So we can move certain aspects of our government, certain transactions, certain procedures into the blockchain, but we have to be sure, absolutely sure, that there will be no bridges, there will be no data leakages, and the setup of the system meets the necessary security criteria. And I'm very glad to say that technologies like zero-proof knowledge or double blinding are promising to resolve these issues for us. And when it comes to opportunities, the opportunities are endless. For instance, tracking the goods and services. I don't know if you remember, like 6 months ago, there was an outbreak in USA, E. coli outbreak, originated from lettuces. And it took 4 months for the US government to track down the origin of the problem. With blockchain technologies, you can really track down the goods and understand the origin. And after they implemented a pilot blockchain project, now it takes 2 seconds to really originate the source of the problem. And that's one side. And the foreign trade, when it comes to foreign trade, and I'm responsible for foreign trade studies, foreign trade and blockchain really connects to each other. Why? Because there are different parties in foreign trade transaction, different government authorities, customs, different companies, and they don't trust each other, and there's an efficiency problem. And that's what we are trying to solve in the government. So I think we could really leverage on the blockchain technology to solve certain problems. I don't know if I could make you believe that we are not against blockchain, but yeah.
I was just kidding. Yeah, the thing is, because out of regulation, I mean, nobody controls the blockchain. So actually, we discussed a few minutes ago, who should start? Most of the time, when we talk with the businesses, and they think that, okay, we have to have a blockchain application in our business, but who are going to start with? I don't want to be the starter, so they're looking for some sort of a regulative body. So actually, kind of, we got, in a way, addicted to regulative parties. But your role is totally different. Actually, it's government is pushing throughout this technology to applications. What kind of things you have accomplished so far, and what is your vision for the future?
Yeah, our department has 2 tangible projects that integrates blockchain technology. The first, 2 projects. The second one is the vision project, the big project that we are trying to achieve. But we have to start with a small one, to understand the landscape and to understand what the benefit will be for the government. So the first project is about elimination of unnecessary tests when you export or import certain products. Let's say you are exporting olive oil, okay? When you export olive oil, you have to go to the Ministry of Agriculture and they order you to do some tests to make sure that the product is safe to export. And you do those tests, and it's enough? No. You go to the DG for product safety, and they order another test, and because they need to make sure that the product meets certain quality criteria, because it's representing Turkish brand name abroad. You do those tests as well. Are you done? No. Because now you have to go to DG of Customs, and they order you to do some more tests, which is basically to understand you are exporting olive oil or motor oil, because they will tax it accordingly. And those tests overlap. So different governments, institutions are doing same kind of tests at the same product. And there are laboratories accredited by different government agencies. So imagine this ecosystem. It's a textbook blockchain case, in my opinion. Different authorities, the same test, and there's a trust issue. So we are uniting all the necessary bodies together so that there will be no more unnecessary tests when you try to import or export your products. And that's number one. And the Vision project it's a huge project. So when it comes to foreign trade, there are three pillars, right? You first track down the cargo, the shipment, ships, trucks, so on and so forth. And along with the shipment goes with the documents, the bill of lading, the certificate of origins. So that's another route. And in parallel, you transfer the money. So money, documents, the actual product. And there are multiple parties in each of these cycles. So as the government, we are trying to formulate a way to integrate our companies or us, and we are still working on that. We don't know if we are going to be a part of an ongoing blockchain ecosystems, which are being emerged in different countries right now. But we will use this technology to unite the actors and to eliminate unnecessary costs and unnecessary tests and unnecessary bureaucratic procedures. That's what we are trying to do in Turkish government.
I think you have to kick me out of here.
Yeah.
Somebody has to
Yeah.
come pick me out.
Thank you for your contribution.
Okay. Good luck.
I'm very glad.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thanks. And I would like to introduce Mr. Oliver Oram to the stage. Mr. Oliver.
Hi, Emin. How are you?
Hi. How
Good.
are you?
Right, actually, this 360 thing is a bit actually harder than blockchain to understand.
Yeah.
So bear with me, please.
Yeah, it's all right. Would you care to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's great to see you all. It's a lovely city, Istanbul. My name's Oliver Oram. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Chainvine. And yes, the clue is in the name. 4 years ago, I started the company, but I was inspired by somebody who used to counterfeit wine. It was an Indonesian chap by the name of Rudy Kanaravan. Has anybody here seen a documentary called Sour Grapes? No one? One person there.
Yeah.
So this guy made about 15 million in 1 year by purely making counterfeit labels. So I knew then that I had my nemesis, if you like. I had a case. So our first use case was basically around the simplification of digital certification. Why blockchain? Why do we decide to use blockchain as technology? Well, essentially, I became very interested in Bitcoin in around about 2010, 2011. It solved one fundamental problem for me in the world of crypto, and that was the risk of a double spend. So by applying this technology to wine, what I wanted to do was eliminate counterfeiting by saying you couldn't spend the same bottle twice. Now, since wine 4 years ago, we've come a long way. We've worked with fair trade coffee, we've worked with steel, we've worked with aluminium, and we've also worked with supply chains that have had to be automated and compliant to religious standards.
Yeah, exactly. And what are your views on the use of blockchain technology in financial services?
Right, so I'm going to talk about three issues here. I think the use of blockchain in financial services is only increasing more and more. You saw BBVA, the bank earlier on this year, they issued 35 million on green bonds, which I think is actually quite good because of essentially what they want is an audit trail going back all the way through green finance, which is in some cases quite questionable. I was traveling in Asia last week and they said, what is green finance? That's thoroughly on how you define it.
Exactly.
So what you can see here is that commercial financial units are really using this technology and experimenting with it. Obviously, you've got the insurance guys as well. Yeah. I never actually wanted to target the banks. I always thought actually the more softer target was corporate treasury. So now you're beginning to see corporate treasuries come into this area. And this is where it gets really interesting because it specifically deals with what you're talking about. Foreign trade, trade and finance, supply chain, all interconnected.
Yeah.
And this is actually where you say, actually, I don't want the banks, I want your customers. So yeah, that's why we aimed for the customers, not the banks themselves. And that's the sweet spot. Thirdly, I want to say, like, you know, we can't ignore the third financial factor of blockchain, and that's crypto itself.
Yeah.
Many people are using crypto as an alternate form of finance. You know, you're looking at people, one case was basically crypto being used as escrow in Venezuela because of their own fiat currency is going crazy. So it's actually safer to be in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you have these two sort of traditional types of finance, and then you have this third alternate finance. And I always like to think that the third one will never go away, no matter what some very famous economists say. He's quite rabid about it. I think he's been on Twitter today. But if you think about it, crypto for me is very free. It's very out there, and it's about communities. Now, we can't always trust central banks. You just have to ask the people of Cyprus in 2008. So yeah, I think crypto will be there as that third alternative for finance. I think the more traditional players will be looking at back and middle end in finance.
And they are also investing in this sector because they are afraid of disruption, I guess. They are investing in cryptocurrencies. And coming from a government perspective, cryptocurrencies, I think it will take time for us to get used to that technology because it defies the traditional ways of doing business, especially in the government context. But again, it can provide a lot of opportunities, especially cross-border micropayments, let's say, because you can't transfer $1 right now because it costs too much and it's not efficient. But with cryptocurrencies, I think you can do that, and it would benefit underprivileged groups in the country that could sell small things, and we can really track down the payment as well. Well, coming from the government, we always want to track down the payment, and we always want to make it easier for our exporters and importers to transfer money easily. And underbanked societies in Africa, maybe, still some countries, we are carrying bags of money through planes, still, I mean. And it's a shame, and it causes a friction in the foreign trade. So I think the cryptocurrency market could be an answer to those problems.
So, yeah, I agree. I mean, we work actually with some African countries. I do a lot of work around financial inclusion, where I just generally speak about technology and the benefits of it, not just blockchain per se or crypto.
Yeah.
But obviously, the beauty of the technology is the ability to make fractional payments. And what we're working on now is a project called Frictionless Trade. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you one government agency that really likes this. They're called the Tax Office.
Yeah.
And what they really like about it is when we can see where your trade's going, actually, we can tax you quicker. But you know what? We're going to charge you less for taxing you quicker because you're going to need less paperwork because you're going to digitize it. So there is always a carrot with a stick, if you like. It's always good to get the carrot.
Exactly. And I know there are, they are using this technology with phones in Africa, and they are using the blockchain technology, especially cryptocurrency payments for remittance, sending money abroad in Philippines to USA, and but I think it will take time for the government to really understand the technology, understand the benefits, and
I think there's also a fear, the central banks don't particularly like cryptocurrencies for a reason, because the central banks like to control things. Yeah. And that's their job. As you would probably, I wouldn't say you probably get on with your central bank governor, I'm sure, but I'd say you may disagree on certain things that technology, on the one side, is very helpful to trade and finance, may not be essentially very helpful to a central bank that's trying to keep reins on everything. Yeah. My views on central banks and cryptocurrencies are essentially this, that a central bank will not want to ever let go of its monetary policies. And, we've seen this. I mean, central banks are funny characters, right? Because of, I'm going to go back to 2008, and sometimes economics don't make sense, but the central banks like that because they're in control. Yeah. So if you take it back to 2008, basically the euro was frozen in Cyprus. Now, what would happen, would you think, if we froze the pound in Manchester tomorrow and gave everyone in the banks a haircut, literally took 20% out of their bank? That's economically impossible to stop that flow of money.
Yeah.
But yet we did it with the euro. So I would say to the central bankers this, you know, sometimes things aren't quite as clear-cut as you say. The fear for them of cryptos is purely about control.
Yeah, yeah.
But they could learn actually off another economy. And before I got into and founded my company, I studied decentralized economics.
Okay.
And this was under the Chinese economical model. And they used a process of decentralization. First of all, administration, and then process. And then they began to get economical gain because they took everything away from the command structure. So you don't have to go completely mad. So you'll get the purists who go, everything must be distributed. You know, we must have completely autonomous crypto exchanges with no humans around. Well, you know, that's the purist view.
Yeah.
You can have hybrid models.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a progress, and we will get to there eventually. Let's say.
People aren't ready for quite the jump that some people want. And the other thing about crypto, what you've got to remember is they're very much based around communities. The developers really like what they do, so you'll get developers who really like the Bitcoin standard, and they would just stay with that. And you'll get Ethereum developers who think Ethereum's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Some of us might disagree in the audience, I'm sure, on that one.
Yeah. No objections, I guess. Okay. So I think it's my turn. Thank you. And yeah.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to meet with you. Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
Can I just ask Burak now to take the stage, please? Hi, Burak, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, Burak, could you tell me a bit about your role at Active Bank and what you do?
Yeah, I'm from Active Bank, and I'm at the IT side of Active Bank. I'm responsible for mainly the data management of the bank and its subsidiaries. As well as the data management side, also we consolidated all the IT departments of the subsidiaries under the Active Bank organization. So I'm also managing 2 of the subsidiaries IT teams as well. And we are also R&D center. So I have team for R&D center management and testing management as well.
So, you're obviously in the thick of it, if we like to say. You're down there in the trenches. You're heavy load on the tech.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what kind of projects you've got going at the moment and how intense they are?
Yeah, actually, in order to identify what kind of projects we are doing, we need to, maybe it is better for me to tell you about Active Bank, how it is processing, because Active Bank is not like just another traditional banks in Turkey. Of course, it's a bank, it's regulated by the laws, banking regulations in Turkey, and it has also banking products as well. But on the other hand, in terms of touching to the society, I mean directed to the people, we are using our subsidiary channels. For example, we have a company called Enkolay, which is for the invoice payment and utility payments. Also, on the other hand, we have UPT, Universal Payment Transfers, which transfers the money globally, I mean remittance kind of business. And that's why we have more than 20 subsidiaries like this, and all of them are a kind of fintechs. So we call ourselves not a bank, we call ourselves as a fintech platform. If you have such an environment, you cannot avoid from blockchain technologies, I mean new disruptive technologies. So as an initiative, Active Bank has established a company called Attivo, which has a cryptocurrency exchange platform, which is called Bitmatrix, and it provides exchange platform, cryptocurrency, and also it has it is the first bank-supported exchange platform, cryptocurrency exchange platform in Turkey. And as far as I know, it is the second in the world. First one is in Japan, as far as I know.
So can I jump in there? Because
Yeah.
if we all know that, you know, a bank saying we're doing crypto is, it's a dream for a lot of exchanges to be able to work with a bank that can help them do crypto. What kind of feedback, or what kind of, has the regulators sort of come to you and said, what do you think you're doing?
In Turkey, in terms, if you think with the banking mind, you may not move so fast in terms of cryptocurrency. But the reason why we established Attivo is to construct a lab environment for blockchain and corresponding technologies behind this. We started as a cryptocurrency market, but behind the scene, we are preparing ourselves for the near future. And I believe that banks in Turkey will provide some cryptocurrency products. And of course, we may need a licensing for the cryptocurrency exchange market as well, in order to keep the safety and security.
So when it comes to licensing, do you feel like Turkey is a good jurisdiction for this?
Right now, we don't have any jurisdictions for this, for cryptocurrencies. But I'm sure that the government...
So if you compare this to, say, let's take Malta, for example, that's putting out a lot of legislation around cryptocurrencies, and is being very friendly, as is Bermuda, who recently hosted a crypto and blockchain event in Paris at the OECD. You know, what kind of barriers do you think you're going to face in the near future?
In the near future, first of all, some regulations should be constructed for cryptocurrency only. And I believe that there should be some ways for the banks to share some information with each other in order to keep the environment safe and clear and secure for everyone. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, since the banking transactions, banking facilities are regulated by some other rules, government may be there in order to take the position about the money transactions.
And have you begun any licensing talks at the moment? Because obviously
there is no such thing right now. There is no licensing procedure for the crypto.
So it's completely unregulated?
Completely unregulated, yeah.
Okay, but you want to be regulated?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And how, so to put it into perspective, how soon do you think you will be regulated as a bank?
Actually, I mean, as a bank, the reason why we are there to keep the security, because since we are the bank and we are regulated by some rules in terms of safety, security, cryptocurrency environment can keep safe by the banks directly. That's why we are here in this business.
So I'd ask you one interesting question around this. So you're acting as the security there, but if you think about large commercial banks, they have to pass a stress test, right?
Yeah.
In case, you know, the economic disaster hits them, can they withstand it? Now, with crypto being a lot more volatile than some fiats, you would say, well, yes, I won't mention any of those fiats, but let's say most fiats are stable, these banks have a stress test level of such. How high do you think a crypto stress level would be?
It depends. It depends on the environment, economical environment in Turkey, actually, yeah.
Would you like to make a guess, or?
Yeah, I cannot make a guess right now.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a very difficult question to make a guess.
So, my last question for you, how would you see your bank in 3 years from now, or even, let's say, 6 years? So let's take 3 years, then 6 years. Let's say you've got the regulation, so and then move on. So, like, tell me how that process will work, and then how do you see yourselves in that time?
Yeah, if under some control, if the rules are very clearly stated, maybe we can provide some products depending on the cryptocurrencies, like cryptocurrency-based loans, or some credit card payments with cryptocurrencies as well. And also, right now, customers are taking long-term positions in the cryptocurrency market, but maybe we can provide some short-term positions in order for the people to gain more money from the cryptocurrencies as well. That's what I would like to tell about the future.
And how long do you think, so do you think regulation will come about in the next 3 years?
In 3 or 5 years.
Okay, and so yeah, I think that about wraps it up from me.
Yeah.
I'm very curious what you would say about one last thing. The problem with crypto is that it can leak across borders. So even if you get regulated here, you can't be regulated there, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
What kind of structure would you put in place there to stop that affecting your bank?
If you are regulated enough, by regulation, I don't mean that restricting the people or restricting the organizations not to do something. But I'm just saying the controlled environment of the cryptocurrencies in order to keep the people's money safe side, secure side. So if your country is regulated and if you would like to make a transaction with the globally, so it will be better enough, at least better enough, to be on the safe side in your country, so you can transfer money to other countries as well. It doesn't make any problem, I guess.
So your ambition, I'm going to finish up here, so it looks like your ambition is to become the first crypto-friendly bank of the world.
Yeah,
Great.
hopefully.
Excellent,
Yeah.
Barak. Thank you.
Yeah. So I would like to invite Walid Al-Sakkaf. I'm sorry. Yeah, welcome. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very good. And yourself?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
I'm going to stand up, that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay, fine. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry, I've got a strong voice. Hi, everyone. My name is Walid Al-Sakkaf, and I'm the founder of Insureblogs. So Insureblogs is a podcast, an educational module that's here to teach you about what is blockchain in the insurance industry. But now we've kind of expanded to cover other industries in finance, in healthcare, and so on. So my background is I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built 5 startups. Insureblogs is my 6th. The first 2 nearly made me bankrupt. The 2 did okay, and 1 did a little bit better. So not too bad as a starting off point.
Yeah. How blockchain and DLT relates to insurance industry at your site?
Sure. So let me ask a question to the audience. Raise your hand if you're from the insurance industry. Okay, you have my sympathies. Next question is, how many of you guys here feel confident defining what's TCP/IP? Raise your hand. Wow, more than insurance. Okay, so that's great. But for those who didn't raise your hand, do you use the internet? Yes. So you use the internet without necessarily knowing what's TCP/IP. So effectively for me, this is what blockchain is. It doesn't matter what it is, but what can it achieve? And within the insurance industry, when I joined insurance, because I'm not from an insurance background, it's like if I wanted a time machine and I landed in a cave in the Stone Age. There were people around Lloyd's in London carrying suitcases of paper, of policies, of information, and I just couldn't help and say, have you seen this? It's a lot lighter and it's a lot more digital. And that's kind of the challenges in the insurance industry. You have a broker who works with a client, and then he works with an insurer to say, can you insure my risk? And then he says, okay, let me find another broker to reinsure that risk, and you got this value chain. And it's crazy, because then you have corporate clients like Maersk, who says, wait a second, 40% of my premium goes to keep the Stone Age system alive. This is ridiculous. I went through the digitization pain, I expect you to do the same. And if you don't, and if you can't be bothered, I'm going to give you the finger, and I'm going to insure myself. And that's what the insurance industry has to wake up to. And also, I would say, other traditional industries such as finance. So blockchain and DLT technology, what the real opportunity is here to give is finally put those companies to digitize their systems, because they've been pushing it back. They still work on COBOL-based systems, which, let's admit it, you need to get people out of retirement to try and keep them alive, those systems. So we need to wake up to that. So that's the first point. Second point, if you digitize yourself, then you can start looking at ways how you can work with your partners in more effective ways, how you can start building ecosystems where you can trust each other. And this is very, very, very important, because or else the other clients, the Maersk and so on, are going to leave.
Yeah. Do you have any use cases at the insurance side on cryptocurrency, blockchain technologies, and DLT?
So I'm not going to go and steal Ken's wind, because he's going to talk to us about B3I, which is a consortium of insurance companies looking at blockchain. But there are many use cases I can talk about. So parametric insurance, like flight delay insurance. So how many of you guys here have taken flights and taken an insurance policy to protect yourself in case a flight is delayed? Okay, so AXA did a test. They said, okay, if you take a flight from Paris to New York, and your flight is delayed, you have to contact Air France. Give me proof that my flight was delayed so I can give it to AXA to say, here's the proof that my flight has been delayed. Great. AXA receives a letter from me saying my flight is delayed. I review it. Yeah, it fits within within the person's policy. I can make a payout. This whole process takes 2 weeks. Then AXA said, well, let's look at blockchain and see what we can do with it. And they built something called Fizzy. And what Fizzy does is that I pull out my mobile phone, I buy a policy at Charles de Gaulle Airport, and if my flight is delayed by over 2 hours, by the time I land, the money is in my bank account. Did I have to make the claim? Did I have to contact Air France? No, because that policy sits on a smart contract on the Ethereum public blockchain. Yeah. And it listens to an oracle or a trusted source of information, like a database. Has that flight been delayed? If it has, then the smart contract says, okay, check Wally's policy. Is it covered? Yes. Make a payout. What does this mean? Is that from an AXA perspective, I don't need that guy to review the policy and do a monkey's job. I can do it by code. And from a customer perspective, I don't have to go through the pain of contacting Air France and waiting 2 weeks to get my money in my bank. It is done automatically. So better customer experience, AXA can reduce their costs, and what they found out is that customers are willing to pay more money for that kind of policy because you're removing the pain. So more money from the customer, lower costs from AXA, higher profit margins. What do you want to do with that? Do you want to pass it on to the customer, or do you want to keep it for yourself? So that's one really interesting case study. Yeah. And the second one I'll touch upon rapidly is Insurer Wave. So Insurer Wave is a marine insurance blockchain that was done by Maersk, EY, Guardtime, and a bunch of insurance company. Because simply to get a ship outside of port into the water, it takes hundreds of documentation, paper documents. Mm-hmm. Now they've digitized the whole process, and it's all on this Insurer Wave blockchain.
So you think that blockchain technologies will make the end customer's life easier rather than the company's life?
So I think our capacity to understand what blockchain can do is only at the beginning. Because this technology is new. We've seen what it can be done with Bitcoin, but we have, to be honest, no clue what it could really do in the future. I've done 60 podcasts, and my understanding of what blockchain can be and can do is evolving on a weekly basis. There's a friend we have, Ken and I, which is called Magda Ramada Sarasola. She works at Willis Towers Watson, and she makes a very good point, is that blockchain is a sociological revolution. And I would add to it that for us to really understand what that means, we need to change the way we think and change our mindsets on how we can really embrace that technology. So imagine in a world where look at the people around you. Some of them you may know, some of them you don't. What level of trust would you be willing to give them your money, your house, your car keys? Probably not. But what happens there is a system that enables you to be the best at what you are and without having to worry about whether you need to trust that person. And that's what blockchain can enable you to do, is provide that trust foundational layer.
Yeah, thank you for the explanatory information about insurance. Do you think that any opportunities or any products in financial services as well? This is the main question in today's roundtable as well. So what do you think about the financial services business rather than the insurance? Insurance may be modeled with blockchain very easily, but in terms of for example, what do you think about the regulations on blockchain technologies on financial services?
So that space is not one which I'm 100% familiar with.
Yeah.
I do know that, like within insurance, whether you're finance, whether you're healthcare, whether you're supply chain logistics, we're all at the beginning stages, again, of discovering what this technology can do. The regulators, for example, in the UK have this sandbox where they invite a number of blockchain insured tech companies to work with them and educate them on what can be done. Because at the end of the day, there is always going to be competing requirements from the parties in terms of what they want to get out of blockchain. So whether it's finance, whether it's insurance, whether it's any other industries, we need to still embrace what that technology can be, and we need to work with the regulators in figuring this out.
Yeah, actually, we are doing that kind of laboratory kind of sessions. Also, we have accepted to the one of the Horizon 2020 calls in European Union, which is related with the detecting the fraudulent cryptocurrencies on blockchain, which is a pilot project for us. And again, mainly we are doing the business on Attivo site, and I think the future is calling blockchain in financial services at the end. So it cannot be avoidable.
I think what will be great is when we get to a world where we don't even need to say blockchain. Just like when you buy that flight delay insurance policy with Fizzy, it doesn't mention blockchain. A customer or an SME or a large institution, they don't care what it's called. They just want to see
cheaper,
a better experience.
Safer, and faster.
Exactly.
Okay, I think my time is up.
Thank you, Burak.
Thank
you. Pleasure.
For the conversation.
So I'm going to call Ken Mark, CMO of B3I. Also, he likes to give himself the nickname of Agent Provocateur, but I'm not seeing any lingerie, so I'm disappointed, Ken.
Oh, okay. Is that your camera?
Yeah, just the camera.
Sorry, I broke it. This is a nice format. Very young. We've never done something like this before.
No, we go to quite a few conferences together. So.
I was just thinking about it earlier on, and for you, it's a little bit like the special offer at the supermarket. You buy one, you get 6 free. I'm going to stand up if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's all right. We can do if you want arm wrestling, but yes. So Ken, can you introduce yourself for those of you who don't know you, what you do in life?
Okay. As you said, I'm Ken Mark. I work for B3I, and B3I is called the Blockchain Insurance Industry Initiative. That's the B and 3 I's. So we're owned by a collection of insurers and reinsurers. We are owned by the market, the insurance market. These insurers and reinsurers are the largest in the world. So consequently, that gives us a very, very strong foundation and we think lots of money as well. What I do is I'm CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, so I'm handling all the marketing and communications. So when it comes to blockchain, what that means is I do not know anything about blockchain. I don't know anything about reinsurance or insurance. I just tell you something interesting, I hope.
Something interesting. No, let's not push it here.
I was going to use another word.
Okay. So, Ken, tell us about B3I. What is its objective and why was it set up?
So it was back in 2016, so a few years ago now, that a bunch of guys thought this Bitcoin blockchain platform is quite interesting. And it could have some applications in a business context within the insurance world. And so they sat down around a table and they said, well, you know, let's do something. And they all looked at each other and said, what should we do? And then they said, well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know anything about blockchain. So 2 weeks later, they found some other people that knew something about blockchain. And they got them together and they said, okay, let's do a reinsurance contract. A reinsurance contract is very simple. The one they chose was for catastrophe excess of loss reinsurance. Which is it's quite a simple contract. Why do we choose a simple one? Because if you're trying to prove something, like a new technology, you really want to keep it quite simple. Otherwise, you introduce a lot of complexity, which makes it more difficult. So they sat around and said, okay, let's do this. And then they realized that blockchain needs a network. It's the definition of blockchain. So they invited other insurers to participate. So another 10 joined. And that set up the consortium that's proceeded to develop this product. And then later on, about 9 months later, they decided to test the first POC, proof of concept, with the market. So another 23 insurers joined, and we had quite a big community testing the product. And the product is intended to save efficiency in the value chain. As you said earlier, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of wasted money going around, especially in reinsurance, where there's a lot of reconciliations. So people make mistakes, they pass the information on, they make more mistakes, and you have to spend a long time correcting all those mistakes. If you can remove all of that using a blockchain platform, then that saves you a lot of money, about 30% of your administration cost. That's a big number. And how does it do that? Well, if you have a shared ledger, if you have a shared database sharing the same information, and everyone has the same copy of the truth. You don't have to pass a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet and make mistakes. That's essentially what we're trying to do, the first product, but in the later stages, we will have a network where we have more products, and this will provide some efficiency in the market for trading risks by using different products, and they can all communicate with each other when you are in this network of blockchain.
Great, thank you. So it's interesting because here you have a group of insurers who decide to look at innovation. And why this is important? Because whether you're insurance industry or finance, you need to embrace your innovation. Because if you don't, somebody else will. How many of you guys are willing to queue outside of a shop to get an insurance policy or a bank account? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you, if you're, let's say, an Apple fanboy, are willing to queue outside an Apple shop to get the latest iPhone? Raise your hand. Okay. So the point is that whether you're buying a banking product or an insurance policy, it's kind of you need to have it, or it's a necessary evil. You can't be bothered. How can you get inspired? And that's what innovation is here to do, because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it. Oops, did I mention Apple Card? Did you guys hear about what they're trying to do, how they're going after the finance industry? They've got hundreds of millions of customers that they can turn on like this. And if you looked at their video, it is a much better product than whatever is out there at the moment. They've learned from what the banks have tried to do. They've learned from what the fintech, and then they put the unique Apple element to it, which is about providing financial health to people. What is a customer requirement? And that's what, if you want, innovation can help you to do, is using technology to build true customer-centric proposition. You do not go to a customer and say, what kind of credit card do you want? No, you go to a customer and you say, you know, tell me about your life, tell me about your hopes, your aspirations, and let's see what can I do to help you build those kind of solutions. So I want to ask you, Ken, what do you think are the opportunities and challenges in working with insurers towards a solution that may or may not involve a blockchain?
Okay, we've only got 4 minutes left, but
you can talk for hours, you know
that.
that.
Talk for hours about this. So the opportunities, I mean, the concept of blockchain is having that shared ledger, that shared information, having everybody in the network having the same version of the truth. Okay, that is extremely helpful and efficient. The other elements, obviously, cryptography is one. The consensus, that is, when you add a piece of information, it has to be agreed by all of the other people. And so then that gives you trust in the information that is locked in there. And the fact that you cannot delete the information that you put there last time. You have to add a new block. That's called a blockchain. You have to add a new block of information. So that gives you immutability. And imagine what that does in the context of fraud and auditing and things like that. And so then that leads to other things like transparency. So lots of opportunities when you start to think, you know, below the surface of the very simplistic way what blockchain offers. And then on top of that, you have this opportunity with smart contracts. I mean, a smart contract is simply a codified contract. A policy of insurance is a contract. It says we will do this if this happens and so on. If you can put that in a smart contract, and as you explained earlier with Fizzy, the flight delay, it's triggered by an event and makes an automatic payment. That saves us a lot of money and improves the service hugely for the customer. But in terms of challenges, there are many challenges, but I will talk about one in particular. I mean, we talk about legacy systems, legacy products, but we also have legacy mindsets. And legacy mindsets are the ones that are really, really the big challenge. It's trying to get people to understand that this is a very useful technology and can help us a lot. At the end of the day, we have to rely on human beings to help us make this work. And that's really, really important. But I'll come back to two really good challenges from a group CEO that I was explaining to once about blockchain. He said, why is this better than what we have today? Okay, hard to answer that question, because actually many things you can do today, you don't need a blockchain. And the second question, what does it do for the customer? The customer means not the insurer or the broker, it means the end customer. And that's really, really important. If you cannot answer those two questions very well, you probably don't need a blockchain.
So we still have 2 minutes, and one of the things I think which you kind of alluded is that if we look back even a year or two, a lot of the blockchain projects that were launched within the insurance industry were effectively in response to shareholders or the press asking, so what are you doing in blockchain? So it's like, I'm gonna do a quick POC, it's like tick in the box, right? But it was not here to answer a customer requirement, and that's why you have some major insurers who claim that 75 to 90% of their proof of concepts did not need a blockchain. So you could be wondering, why do we bother being here then if that's kind of the statistics? But again, this is a very new technology. And those same insurers are still investing in blockchain because they're slowly starting to figure out what it can be used for. So my question to you then now, the curveball question, has B3I figured whether or not blockchain is the right platform for what you need? Can't you just done that with a database and a bunch of APIs?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, let's go home then.
That's it. No, the point is there is something new there which offers, we all realize that it offers something, but you don't know until you try, okay? So build something, use it, try and get some adoption, try and persuade the market to test it, use it, evaluate it, and so on, and then go on to the next step and the next step. But this is not something that happens overnight. Experiment, learn, collaborate is some phrases we use. And then we'll see, and then we'll move on to the next one. And today, in this day, we tend to use an agile methodology and agile mentality, which is all about learning and testing and then doing the next thing.
So we need to be more startup founders. Ken, always a pleasure. Feels like the Laurel and Hardy show sometimes between the two of us.
Sorry, I broke the camera.
Cheers.
Thanks, Wally. So moving on, Stuart King's going to join us. Mind the camera.
Oh, no, I will break it.
Good to see you again.
Ken, likewise.
You can sit. I think I'll sit. I was just winding him up.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so Stuart, could you introduce yourself, please, to the audience?
Well, firstly, I guess we're coming to the end of the conference. It's been amazing. It's not my first time in Turkey. There's a very active ecosystem. I'm joined with a friend and colleague, Stan, from Ireland. We probably represent the blockchain live projects that are happening. A bit about me, I'm a risk finance professional, so I've worked with many of the companies that Ken has in his consortium. I think that's a great initiative. My own personal journey is about breaking down the barriers between the capital, which is the ingredients of our industry, and getting that closer to the consumer. I've spent almost 20 years advising big multinationals on how to optimize capital or use insurance capital as a form of equity. I've been very fortunate to work with some of the best in the industry, but I took that forward now on a desire to really think differently about what insurance means.
Great, thank you very much. So, Stuart, you're based in Ireland, you're based in Dublin. Great beer, lovely people, very friendly people. Nice and green, lots of rain, but you've also got some blockchain projects underway. Can you tell us a little bit about the Irish market and what they're doing in the blockchain context?
Yeah, I think firstly, it's very international. If I look at myself, my grandfather was Irish. My grandparents were Anglo-Indians, so I've got a very eclectic mix of a background. And so Ireland to me is quite attractive in comparison to London, which is where I'm from. From a work standpoint, there's a lot of innovation in London, but from a lifestyle choice, easy access, a great beer. Obviously, Guinness is better in Ireland than the UK. It's a great ecosystem. If I talk about my journey into blockchain, it happened a number of years ago, but I really couldn't find an answer to the questions that I was trying to find. There's a lot out there on the press, but you couldn't really find the source of truth about. There's a lot of hype on blockchain at that moment, negative connotations from Bitcoin and things like that. So I went to the academics, who generally are free of sort of commercial interests, and began to network with them. I was then fortunate enough to meet an eclectic bunch of individuals from all sorts of backgrounds, from poetry, the academic science, cryptography, cryptocurrency, financial technology. And we formed at that stage a very small group called the Blockchain Association of Ireland. It was a non-profit entity, and it was really just a way to open up the doors, probably 4 years ago, for people just to come and talk about what they thought blockchain might mean. Since then, I still don't have the answers what blockchain is. I mean, every day you have a different conversation. So that association then, after a few years, joined the Irish Computer Society, which is a 10,000-member professional organization. And what you realize is all the good ideas out there, you need engineers trained to deliver the projects. There's some great ideas, but the resource you need is still very much evolving. So in 2018, we migrated into the Irish Computer Society. And then the group sort of dissipated, because what we had then is a very big, keen interest from the Irish government through a lot of the leading blockchain advisory firms like Deloitte. They set up an EMEA lab in Dublin. Consensus, as you probably well know, the Ethereum, I guess the Ethereum consulting division. So there's a big increase from the Irish government because they recognize now that, again, differentiating themselves globally, because it's a small country, they add a lot of weight to that discussion. And so then we find ourselves here today with, I'd say, maybe 25 to 30 blockchain type of projects, very few in insurance. Myself and Stan are the only ones that are really active in that space. So I think the future is growing, and I think the network is growing. But it's about the local support from everybody.
So just reflecting on that, I mean, when we look at the European landscape, for blockchain activity, there's lots going on. We're here in Turkey, we're talking about it. So there's lots going on all over the place, and indeed the world. But how I'd sort of kind of picture it is that some are faster, some are slower. Some are very agile, and some will take a long time to warm up. I think the key message is that everybody, pretty much everybody, has something going on, even you may not know about it. But I think my sort of feeling is it's the smaller countries that are kind of probably going to progress better, because the regulation is probably a bit lighter. They're more agile in being able to make decisions, which the decision-making process can be quite cumbersome in more mature markets. So I think what you described.
I think also you've got the bigger economies, continental Europe. That they've got a lot of day-to-day troubles themselves as well. Blockchain isn't big enough to worry about just yet, so they're beginning to create and foster the ecosystems, if you call it that. Yep. You've got the Blockchain Observatory of Europe. Again, it's an industry kind of body trying to just make sense of this, which is sort of ironic when you've got a highly decentralized technology being supported by a government. And I know a number of the panels over the last few days, everybody's innovating in their own way. Regulators are innovating in their own way. Yeah. And I think you've probably seen a more global prospect with that in your efforts at B3I, because it's pretty old, right? It's a couple of years in terms of blockchain world. Yes. It's quite mature.
Yeah, relatively mature, and we do see a lot more. In fact, I mean, B3I is in technically a global proposition, so we do see a lot more. But what I find time and time again now, instead of people asking me what is blockchain, they're saying, "Show me the use case." I mean, they really have an appetite to see what there is in order to understand if they can use it. And I think that's the critical thing this year. We need to see more use cases.
Yeah, and I think to share my experience, I'm part of an early stage startup. It's seed funded, so we've had some money to explore different blockchains. And what you realize is there's attributes of each one which are quite useful, but then that ends up in a multi-stack blockchain, which defeats the sort of purpose of what you're trying to achieve with a very simple technology. So where we feel the market is right now is a hybrid approach between protecting customers' data through sort of very highly encrypted channels, but then having a lot of the working layer still on traditional technology, the quotation and process or non-unique identifier information, it's not really useful, whereas the core data is hidden in this kind of blockchain. So
yeah, and that hybrid approach is not a bad thing. Just because it's not all on the blockchain, it's not a bad thing, because at least if you're improving some efficiencies, you're generating some savings, then that's a good thing. It'll take time. I keep saying this, it'll take time before you really can get some material traction.
I also think that we have to change the way the education system thinks. So the younger generation have a whole different way of looking at the world. It's a connected world. they've grown up with the internet, whereas individuals in my profession, we've had to see that sort of integration. And what that means is we're looking at fitting very powerful technology into a very old way of thinking and a very institutionalized global economy. So I think it's going to take that next academic kind of couple of generations to begin to study a new way of economics or a new financial system. So I think that will take time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, insurance is, I mean, Walid mentioned Lloyd's earlier on, and you know, insurance has been around for, I don't know, how many hundreds of years.
8,000 years.
Or even that. So, you know, we can't expect to change it overnight,
No.
but at least I think the efforts we're making are starting to show some possibilities, some potential, even though the solutions may not be there.
I think the last thing to say, you know, you talk about disruption, and I think you probably share the same thing with me, that the insurance industry is sort of the fabric of society. So I think the modern day insurance market has lost its way somehow. It's become a lot more sales oriented, whereas I think we'll go back to some of the principles of the past, which is, you know, risk sharing, risk caring, because when you think about the economy, insurance premium is almost 10% of the global wealth. So
yeah.
I'm very pleased to hang out with guys like you and the effort. So.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I certainly share that vision, and I certainly hope it happens sooner than later.
So what's next for you then, Ken? You're talking about at the end of the year, you've got a couple of exciting things, and then you've got a pretty detailed roadmap, I guess.
We've got a detailed roadmap, so we've finished this product and we'll start working on some more products, but we have to nail this one, we have to get this delivered, get some adoption, and then we can move on to other things in B3I.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for the joining on the panel.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I look forward to catching up with you later.
Yeah. Cheers.
So I guess I'd like to welcome the next guest from Octbase. This is, in fact, the first time we've met each other, so we're going to have a great conversation because I'm very looking forward to your project. Yeah, sure. So maybe just give a brief introduction about yourself and your project.
Yeah, my name is Erhan. I am Erhan Meriç. I'm actually a long-time software developer, and currently I'm working for Octbase, a Turkish blockchain company. And at Octbase, what we are trying to do is we are trying to bring blockchain solutions into the real-world usage, actually. And while we were trying to do that, we have realized that there was a big confidentiality problem with the blockchain, because blockchain provides consensus and enables collaboration. However, enterprises do not want their data to be compromised. They don't want to share their actual data because most of the time data is sensitive. And also with the GDPR and all other regulations, this is getting more and more attention, the confidentiality. So we have developed our own enterprise blockchain platform, and on top of our platform, we are developing several solutions right now. We are collaborating with different parties like Takas Istanbul and many others.
So do you think the key attribute to you from this technology is the privacy and the security?
Yeah, I would say that if I have to say in one word, I would say confidentiality. Mm-hmm. Because that is what we see is missing in the current market and with the other blockchain platforms. Because they can provide confidentiality, however, while they are providing confidentiality, they are most of the time, and almost all of them, losing consensus power, consensus strength. And consensus strength is so important because consensus is one of the main aspects of the blockchain technology. And in order to provide trust, you have to have a strong consensus. Mm-hmm. So we believe that losing consensus strength is not really acceptable.
From what I understood, you've got quite a lot of activities going on, and you're touching upon the enterprise kind of protocol type of, and I think that's very admirable because somebody will actually resolve those issues, and there will be a standardization, interoperability. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty crowded space, though. Maybe not necessarily in Turkey, because I imagine you're one of few. Mm-hmm. But when you look internationally, how do you think your project sort of stacks up with the crowded marketplace at the moment?
Well, within the crowded market, we differentiate ourselves, as I said, with confidentiality. And since this is a very important aspect for almost all of the enterprises, and they cannot collaborate without that. They cannot build new blockchain-based products. Well, most of the blockchain-based products are actually enabled by having confidentiality. Without confidentiality, you cannot implement, you cannot provide those services, you cannot have those business models.
And you also get some people that can't even get in to the unbanked or individuals that have no identity. I mean, we're living in a world where we're quite lucky.
Yeah.
From where we're from. But when you look at the applications of products like Octobase, you're beginning to get into that, offering a level of confidentiality and security to citizens of countries that may not be so lucky. I can imagine there's quite a few use cases in that area for your company.
There are a lot of use cases, actually.
So, obviously, it's a fintech conference. I'm in the insurance industry. How do you feel the challenge is to integrate such products into insurers? Over the last few days, we've heard a lot of incubations and collaborations. Do you believe they're genuine collaborations, or are these, just projects which would normally happen within an insurance company? They've just reassigned the budget. So, I guess your thoughts on that would be quite interesting.
We are already actually collaborating with financial institutions. The thing is, well, it seems conflicting, but it's the nature of their business, actually, because they're both conservational in some ways. They really don't want to change the old way of doing things really easily, at least, unless you provide some real value, some big value. And on the other hand, they really want to catch up with the technology. They want to use the technology. They are very interested in developing new technology usages for themselves, new models, new business models.
And how did you convince them? What was your experience?
There's a trade-off. If you, the blockchain is actually comes handy here, because blockchain enables new business models, and using new business models that are not existing currently, and with the blockchain technology creating these new business models, that's more acceptable for them. I mean, they wouldn't want to change their current database provider, for example. I mean, even if you build the best database in the world, you couldn't convince them. But since blockchain is a new technology and it creates new models for collaboration with the other parties, they want to improve their services, they want to create these new businesses for themselves.
I think a lot of it's about culture as well, isn't it? And not in a board culture sense. It's about conservatism or risk taking. So when in my career I've had to explain a lot of complex transactions to boards of directors to make decisions, because at the end of the day they have to make a decision, investment decision. They've got multiple stakeholders. They've got their customers, their regulators, the shareholders, the staff, and they have to manage that. I think from my experience, what I find now is that my colleagues, if you say, a lot of the older generation are now beginning to reconnect with their children, because their children and their grandchildren are beginning to talk about blockchain and cryptocurrency. And so you've now got that communication where decision makers aren't so afraid to open up the discussion.
Yeah, there are more open to new technologies.
I think so. It's sort of, again, it's an interesting dynamic when you've got a very open source, decentralized technology, which can transform a lot of things that we're not really fully aware of. And then you've got the incumbents realizing we're going to have to do something. Again, I'm quite curious about how your journey into engaging with the incumbents, and maybe you could share some experiences of that.
I cannot really go into the details of the experience, because it's with the other parties, And,
what kind of advice would you give to the next startup that's trying to engage better with the industry?
Well, if they are going into business with the blockchain, many companies are already very interested in the blockchain technology, and that provides an easy way to get an introduction and to get started with the business. But going beyond the POC stage is not really that easy, because there you need to provide some real value for them. And they need to be careful when they choose their projects. when working with the other enterprises.
It's not just about money, it's about management time,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they should also be ready for longer periods of waiting times, because it is both taking long time for banks or other financial institutions when you want to have a meeting, because they have all these other things going on. And we are already working on our project all the time, but they are not. And the other thing, even if the project is ready, they may not be ready to use it. So that part may also take longer than they expect. And they should be ready for that.
So I just closing up the conversation, which has been good to learn about your business. Where would you see Octobase in the next sort of 3 or 5 years? Because at the moment I get the feeling that you no longer have to explain what a blockchain is to many people.
Yes.
There's an awareness level that's quite high now. So that's only going to increase. And so do you think in the next while you'll get more interest with partnerships, or where do you see Octobase in the near future?
Actually, people get more and more knowledge about blockchain. So we don't have to explain blockchain that more anymore.
It's the
That much
application of it.
anymore. Yeah. But our difference, confidentiality, that's why we need to wait for a little bit more. I mean, we expect that people will realize that they really need confidentiality, and when they are using the blockchain, any blockchain platform for these business models, and when they realize that, we will be there to provide the solution.
Well, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Me too.
Thanks to everybody to listen, and I'll leave. And I
Okay.
think I leave you on the stage.
Thank you.
Take care.
Nice to meet you. I would like to invite Jin from Binance. Hi, Jin.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jin Chao. I'm the strategy officer at Binance, which is a global cryptocurrency exchange that was formed in mid 2017 and very quickly became one of the largest exchanges in the world. Yeah.
So we all know that Binance is a key player in the crypto exchange market. It's a major player, a major crypto exchange. I'm wondering how Binance managed to take this place in the market, and how do you keep that currently?
Great question, and something that we get asked about a lot. It is a pretty amazing story. I think I read somewhere that it's one of the fastest companies to have become a unicorn. It's, I think, a combination of hard work, good tech, a focus on doing things right and setting a higher standard in a relatively new industry. And frankly, a lot of it was a bit of luck as well. So from a timing standpoint, it formed right around the time when exchanges were running into some troubles, some problems. It made very proactive decisions to move where it was welcome. And probably one of the biggest attributes was the security level and attention to customer service that other exchanges perhaps didn't put as much resources into. So the tech itself, I think, is quite good, and that's a testament to the history of the engineering team that's worked with our founder CZ for a while, and also his background in high-speed trading systems. So sort of a right time, right guy, right place. But also the amount of attention that we put in, amount of resources we put into resources into security. Our exchange has never been hacked. Constant attempts to do that, but no successful attempts. So I think that's given our users a sense of security, and you can see that within our very loyal community.
So we see that all around the world there's a growing interest in cryptocurrencies. Yep. And there are a lot of new startups, new companies are emerging that want to do ICOs or had already did ICOs in the past. And the market is really growing for the cryptocurrencies by that way. And startups wants to use ICO as a funding model sometimes, and sometimes token economy is their part of their business model. Yep. And also in Turkey, we see a lot of new companies, new startups with ICOs or future ICO plans. So within that growing ecosystem, I know that you also take part. Maybe you would like to mention about that, how you support, maybe.
Yeah, sure. We do have a pretty rigorous listing process and application process. So our acceptance rate is relatively low. That's probably a function of us hopefully having a very high criteria, but also the volume of applications coming in. We also have a Launchpad, which is an advisory group that helps evaluate projects and sort of guides them on what the market appetite is at the moment, how to best structure it, how to make sure that they're successful after they list. As an exchange, we're very concerned about liquidity, and the projects are too. Once there's this sort of the initial offering, and then there's the trading liquidity that will maintain and support the token. It's interesting, in a previous life, I was an investment banker in San Francisco during the original .com, and so I saw a similar craze, something that was similar to the ICO craze a couple years ago, where there were a lot of projects that were perhaps reverse engineering the success of some legitimate projects, and so you need to be aware of and do the due diligence on what the management team's background is, what they're planning to do, and how sincere they are about doing it. So that's always a risk, and every time there's some projects that perhaps are viewed as a little sketchy, then there's a lot of reputation risk. So that's something that we are constantly aware of. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I will leave the stage for the next speaker.
Okay.
It was nice to meet you.
All right,
Thank you for your answers.
Likewise. I guess I would like to invite Gunnar back to the stage to wrap up our 360-degree panel. Very cool format.
Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate that.
Not at all.
The last one to speak for the whole event is the most difficult one. I think it is the shortest way to say that. Thank you for the organizing committee, and thank you for those who contribute to this, not only to this session, to the whole event. Actually, that's a great success story. We should keep talking about it, because this is a technology that we will explore, and eventually for the good and the benefit of the whole human beings and the mankind, we have to explore new opportunities, and we should keep talking among us, and hopefully we will come up with better products and better solutions for our future. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you again. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to you all. I know that there is only a few people in the room, that we are all tired after 2 days of events, and thank you very much. Can I just, ask for a round of applause for this lady here? Demet Zübeyroğlu, she is the person behind that. Set up, come on over. You see, I'm in between the Amazons, okay? Come on up. She's another person who has put together everything in place. They're both great. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate all your efforts, for 2 days. It was not easy, I know, and we did something quite extensive. And I look forward to seeing you around, hopefully meeting next year again, doing a larger event under Istanbul Fintech Week. And I appreciate the support of our sponsors. And also, thank you very much for doing that for 2 days. Technical team, really appreciate it. İpek, thank you very much. Cameraman, thank you very much. All the best to you all, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. All the best.